She walked into the bank dressed in elegance, not just a customer, but a powerful black CEO. Yet what happened next stunned the entire branch. The whispers. The glares. The teller's hesitation. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" one muttered. She wasn't asking for a loan. She wasn't there to beg. But somehow, they still saw her as less. What they didn't know was that their worst mistake wasn't turning her away, it was underestimating who she really was. 10 minutes later, their world turned upside down. How did a simple refusal end with an entire staff being fired? Keep watching. If you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss a moment that matters. Monique Harris wasn't just any executive, she was the youngest black woman to ever lead a Fortune 500 tech company. Her story was the kind people wrote headlines about: born in Atlanta, raised by a single mother, first in her family to attend college. She built her empire from scratch, no handouts, no shortcuts. Every morning started with discipline, every decision with strategy. And despite her billions, she never stopped dressing sharp and walking into rooms like she owned them, because often, she did. This particular morning, Monique decided to handle a personal errand, visiting one of the local branches of her company's partner bank to close an outdated business account. Nothing unusual. No entourage. No assistant. Just her, heels clicking against polished floors, a calm authority in every step. She preferred to stay connected to the real world, to remember where she came from. As she stepped into the air-conditioned lobby, heads turned. Some recognized her. Others just saw a black woman in a sharp navy blue suit. The receptionist greeted her awkwardly, eyes darting down to her clipboard. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked. Monique gave a polite nod and explained why she was there. But as she approached the counter, something shifted. A tense silence. The bank teller, a middle-aged man with slicked back hair, barely made eye contact. His tone turned cold. His words clipped. Documents were questioned. ID rechecked. Voices raised behind the glass. It wasn't just bureaucracy, it was something more. Subtle, but loud to those who've lived it. She knew this game. She'd played it before. But what they didn't know, was this time, she wasn't going to walk away quietly. At first, Monique stayed calm. She'd dealt with microaggressions before. Her life was a catalog of moments like this, people mistaking her for the assistant, questioning her credentials, asking if she was lost. But this felt more deliberate. The teller spoke louder now, his tone sharp enough to turn heads in the lobby. "I'm going to need additional verification," he said, gesturing for a manager. "This account doesn't seem to match your profile." Monique leaned in. "Excuse me?" Her voice was cool, but firm. She spelled her name again, slowly, deliberately. "I've had this account for 10 years. He didn't look up. "We've had problems with fraud lately," he mumbled. Behind her, 2 other employees approached, whispering. The manager finally arrived, a woman in a tight smile, eyes flicking from Monique to the computer screen. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she began. "But we need to follow protocol. If you can step aside." Step aside. Those words hit her harder than they should have. She looked around. A white man in jeans had just walked up to the next window. No ID shown. No questions asked. He was laughing with the teller. Another woman, casually dressed, was escorted to the back office without delay. Monique wasn't just being delayed. She was being profiled, publicly, quietly, unmistakably. And then, the final straw: "We can't proceed with this transaction today," the manager said. "You'll need to return with someone from your company." That was it. A line crossed. Monique pulled out her phone, not to film, not to call anyone, but to forward a simple message to her chief of staff. 2 minutes later, an alert popped up on the teller's screen. Then another. Then another. Employees looked confused. Nervous. One whispered, "Why is corporate calling?" Within 5 minutes, the branch manager's phone rang. Then the assistants. Then the regional director. Everyone stopped moving. Monique didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She stepped aside, not out of submission, but out of power. And then, through the glass, she watched it unfold. The teller's face went pale. The manager's fake smile cracked. Employees peeked around corners. A black SUV pulled up outside. A senior executive from the bank headquarters stepped out, urgency in every step. The lobby, once filled with noise, fell into a strange silence. You could almost feel the fear in the air. The same manager who dismissed her now rushed forward, apologizing profusely, asking her to return to the private office. But it was too late. This wasn't about one transaction anymore. This was about systemic disrespect, and Monique, a billionaire CEO, had just exposed it. She simply looked at the manager and said, "You'll want to check your messages." The room turned ice cold. As the bank employees fumbled to recover, Monique remained perfectly still, a pillar of poise and control. But behind her calm eyes burned a quiet fury. Not just for herself. For every woman who had ever been humiliated behind polite smiles. For every black professional treated like a threat or a fraud the moment they walked through the door. The senior executive approached her like she was royalty. His suit sharp, his face pale. "Miss Carter, we are so sorry. This should never have happened." She didn't speak. Just tilted her head slightly, letting the silence speak louder than any outburst ever could. Behind the glass, the teller, the same one who had questioned her, was now being ushered away by security. His headset removed. His face red with shame. The branch manager tried to interrupt. "Please, Miss Carter, allow us to make this right." She finally spoke. "Right?" Her voice was soft but razor-sharp. "You saw my name. You knew who I was the second you looked at the screen. And still, you asked me to step aside." No one had anything to say. The executive cleared his throat. "We've already begun internal action. This branch is under review. As of now." One by one, employees began walking out of the side door, some confused, some in tears, most carrying cardboard boxes hastily filled with their things. It wasn't just disciplinary action. It was a purge. A system that tolerated racism, even quietly, was being dismantled before Monique's eyes. And it had taken just 10 minutes. A customer whispered to another, "What's going on?" Someone else responded, "That's Monique Carter, the tech mogul. She just had them all fired." The murmurs grew. People took out their phones. Not to mock. Not to jeer. But to document something they didn't see every day. A black woman who refused to shrink. A woman who didn't yell, didn't beg, but still made justice echo louder than rage ever could. And as Monique walked toward the door, past the stunned faces, she paused only once, turned back, and said quietly, to no one in particular, "Respect isn't a courtesy. It's a requirement." Then she was gone. But what she left behind would echo far beyond the walls of that bank. Monique didn't look back. She stepped into the sunlit sidewalk, her heels clicking like punctuation marks on a final sentence. But inside her, something had shifted. Not because she fired an entire team, but because she had reminded the world that dignity doesn't come with a title, it comes with presence. News of the incident spread like wildfire. Within hours, headlines read, "Black CEO denied service, shuts down entire branch in 10 minutes. Social media lit up. Some cheered. Others debated. But no one ignored it. Her team issued no official statement. Monique didn't need to defend what everyone had already witnessed. The security footage, the customer videos, it all spoke louder than any press release ever could. And behind the scenes, something even more important began. Other CEOs reached out, quietly. Boards of directors held emergency meetings. Not out of fear, but out of reflection. If a woman like Monique Carter, with billions in net worth and unmatched success, could be treated with such casual disregard, what about those without power? Without cameras. Without names people recognize. That one moment in the bank became a spark. Some called it a corporate reckoning. For Monique, though, it wasn't about revenge. It was about restoring balance. A silent demand that institutions check their biases, not after the damage is done, but before it ever happens. The teller who dismissed her. He'd applied to 3 other banks. None hired him. The branch itself was shut down for restructuring, but those who knew, knew. And Monique? She went back to building. Back to mentoring young Black entrepreneurs. Back to shaping the future of tech. But this time, more eyes were on her, not because of scandal, but because she reminded an entire country of something they'd long forgotten. Power isn't just in money. It's in dignity. In presence. In being unshakably yourself in rooms that weren't built for you. So the next time someone steps into a room where they don't look the part, they'll remember her walk. Her silence. And the way she turned humiliation into a historic moment of truth. Because justice doesn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes, it walks in wearing heels.